was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in. It's a long 12 hours, the power's out again. I pray for inner strength and that we don't lose no lives. Just another day in the first responders' eyes. Half a cup of coffee's gone, the first run comes in. A car slid off the road, there's a family trapped within. My heart beats like a hammer, I can barely catch my breath. I'm thinking the worst and hoping for the best. Yeah, we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. It's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this burden when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone.
Hey, welcome to the award-winning Mad Radio Show, your first responder network in healing our heroes. You are listening to John, and Sam is on hiatus this week, moving her mom in from the East Coast here to Texas. I want to welcome back our very special guest who's been on our show before, Jeff Freeman, Rowlett police officer. Thank you, Jeff, for sitting in. It's always a pleasure to have you here. We are dedicated to providing first responders with updated mental health resources, vetted resources actually for you. We are coming to you live from Globe Life Park, the home of the Fishbowl Radio Network, in the heart of the entertainment district in Arlington, Texas. And Jeff, we have a great show, man. We're going to get real today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, talked to me last week about coming back in, and we were trying to figure out who we'd have on. Got a good friend of mine, Eric Zimmerman, retired firefighter, paramedic, retired arson investigator, served in the Navy as a retired as a chief petty officer, corpsman, deployments to Iraq. I think he kind of wraps up, from a first responder and target audience that we hit. He's kind of the all-in-one package.
I was reading your bio, Eric, man. It's it's like nothing you haven't done.
Well, it kind of seems like that reading it.
Yeah.
I think it would.
No, but one thing I saw that you're in the Army, right?
Correct. I started in the Army.
And then you got injured, and then you re-enlisted, right? You went to the Navy Reserves. Wow, just how to keep giving back.
Well, it was just something. It was something I always wanted to do. Was serve in the military. Everybody on my dad's side of the family, we have a long line of military. My grandfather served in the Navy in World War II, and my dad served in Vietnam in the Air Force. So it was just
like Lieutenant Dan. Every one of my
yeah, I definitely didn't want to die on the battlefield, though. I'll tell you that.
And then a Rowlett firefighter, that's awesome. You became a paramedic, and you were in Rowlett fire department, right?
Correct.
Is that before you got deployed, or did you retire from there?
No, that was before I got deployed. I got hired in Rowlett in 1993 as a firefighter paramedic, and then they put me through the police academy, and I became an investigator there.
Oh, very good.
And that was in '96. I think I became an investigator, and then I enlisted in the Navy Reserve in 1998.
And deployed in what?
2005.
Deployed in 2005. Man, Jeff, me and you talk about this all the time, and especially, back in '93 when you got hired, and '95 and '96 while you were in the Rowlett Police Department. And Jeff, you date back that way too. We had no peer support. We had no mental health programs. We had Suck It Up, right?
Yeah, and even driving out here tonight, I was thinking about it, and a lot of the traumas that I've talked about, this guy was there on the fire side. One of my first cases was a suicide, and I think I've talked about it on here before. Once we start going through EMDR, once I started going through EMDR, and this is 6 months in, we start talking about that trauma, and Eric's face kept coming up on it, and I started remembering things he did.
Kind of putting
and on the way
together?
home from my session, I call him. I go, "Hey man, do you remember this 15-year-old kid? You know, it was up on Allen and Twos, which is district." He goes, "Yeah, what's going on with it now?" I said, "Were you there?" And he goes, "Yeah, he was my patient." I'm like, "Hey bro, for 17 years, I didn't know you were there."
Wow.
You know, I had zero recall of him being there. And then it once EMDR opened up, I was like, holy crap. You know, but Z's been on a lot of, on a lot of my, you know, and back in the day, I can't speak for it now, not being in the patrol division, but when I was in patrol division, we were very tight with our fire guys. He's fed me several times, you know, "Hey, we're eating at 6, be there, bring $5.
What cop doesn't go to a firehouse to eat?
I honestly, but
Not the smart one.
with our, you know, with the 12-hour shifts, a lot of that changed, and our patrol shifts are 0600 to 1800, and so that cuts right into, you know, firefighter cuddle time or whatever it is y'all do, and you know, and dinner. So I mean, I can't speak for those guys now as far as you know how tight they are. I know when I see the guys, you know, in the fire department, it's like, "Hey man, how long you been here?" You know, there's been a significant turnover in fire and police side. You know, the guys I still talk to in the fire department, they're like, "Hey man, you've got a whole shift I've never met."
Wow.
You know, and that's on them. I know when I was a trainer, I took them to all the firehouses, you know, and tried to hit all 3 shifts. "Hey,
this is where you go to the bathroom.
You need to know these. Yeah,
This is where the good coffee is.
You need to know these guys.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's kind of sad to see it that way now. And again, I may be speaking out of turn, but that's how far me and Eric go back.
And you forgot he was on that job, and that's kind of weird because, you know, that's what post-traumatic stress does to you. It closes up your brain, and it really affects your memory. It really has a detrimental effect on things that you felt that were significant at the time, but your brain buried. And, it knocks down some of the details and that's been the amazing part of this journey is you know, as I've gone through therapy and I start talking to people and everything else, is just how the brain works, how the chemistry of the brain works and everything else, and how it'll shut down different parts of an event that just aren't significant to survival or whatever the case may be, but they're still there. They're still running in the background. Yeah,
those files don't delete. It's like it's a virus on your computer. You know, and that was the best explanation I got from my therapist was, "Hey, we're going to go in here and we're going to shut down some of these files that are running in the background." And
because they exhaust you, don't they?
It's absolutely
big
exhausting.
time.
You know, and sleep deprivation is probably the biggest. That was my biggest Achilles heel going through it, and you know, without the REM sleep and everything else, you never come out of fight or flight. You know, you got stuck in that, and it's just that constantly looking for those hits of dopamine too in your brain to keep going.
Right, and you know, Eric, you know as well as we do. Well, we're looking at it from a police officer side. You know, and I don't want to say that firefighters or paramedics sometimes are lost in when we talk about post-traumatic stress. You know, everybody turns around and, you know, we talk about our veterans, you know, and then we'll talk about our law enforcement because they have a significant amount of suicides. But sometimes the firefighters and paramedics get lost in that mental health awareness because they go, "Oh, they're firefighters. Oh, they're paramedics." Man, you guys, firefighters and paramedics, see things that cops sometimes don't even see. I've seen, you know, and there's another thing I was talking about. When you differentiate a cop and a firefighter, you know, I've seen the most seasoned detectives pull a floater out of the East River. He's been in there 3 weeks. You know, bloated, skin melting off the body, pulling him up with a hook from the harbor unit, eating a tuna sandwich, not blinking an eye, you know? But show him a burned body, he'll be puking his brains out. You know? Get that burnt smell of skin in your body, well, it's crazy.
Well, I think one of the problems is that in the fire department, we're not really seen as, you know, with law enforcement. You know, I think we're seen more as kind of like combat. You know, just like our veterans are. And I don't think that people understand that it's not really that type of environment that does it, but it's those chemical triggers that really leach itself into that memory, just like what Jeff was talking about, and becomes those dopamine triggers and serotonin triggers, and you get that whether you're a veteran, you've been in combat, or whether you've been, you know, an officer and you've been in bad situations, or whether you've been a firefighter and been on bad calls. Right. So
let me ask something. And this is to try to put a lot of our people into perspective. When you talk about traumas, you know, it doesn't even have to be a trauma. A deployment, just being deployed, is a trauma in itself, and people don't seem to understand that. You're away from your family for 13 months, and you are on high alert. So you could go through that whole deployment with not even seeing one gunshot, but still be traumatized.
Yeah,
because of the deployment, being away.
It's the hypervigilance.
The hypervigilance.
Well, not just the hypervigilance, but it's also, I mean, everything. Because deploying with the Marine Corps, we stay on the schedule with the floats with the fleet, and so our deployments, our actual overseas portion of it, is between 6 and 7 months, depending.
Still a long time.
It's still a long time, and you know, like on my combat deployment to Iraq, I missed my oldest son's second birthday. I missed my youngest son's first birthday. Obviously, I missed a whole slew of holidays in there. I missed a wedding anniversary and all kinds of stuff like that. And so, and sometimes when you're deployed, the people who are trying to support you, whether it's spouses or friends or coworkers or whatever, they don't quite understand how to do that, and that adds to that whole entire miasma of just things not working out right.
Yeah, when you talk about survivor's guilt, you know, you're also talking about abandonment guilt, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Same thing. It's an abandonment guilt. The kids, let's talk about collateral damage. Hey, Daddy missed my birthday because he was over deployed. They don't see it as you're fighting for a country. All they see is, and especially young kids, see it as, well, Daddy's not here.
It was my youngest son's birthday, and he was 1. So hopefully he doesn't remember that. But I mean, but seriously, I mean, that deployment cost me a marriage, and you know, it's cost me relationship time with both my sons, simply because of a lot of things that came out of it. So
now your deployment, you were attached to a pretty active unit.
Yeah, we went in early 2005 to Al Anbar province, and we were in Haditha and Heat, Iraq. And I was with 3rd Battalion, 25th Marines. I was the battalion lead petty officer, excuse me. And we had roughly a little bit more than 70 KIA, and this is with an augmented battalion. So we had about almost 1,200 people with us between tanks and tracks and a lot of other people that were attached to us. But we had over 70 KIA and about 250 wounded.
Wow!
So we were one of
that's big firefights, right?
Yeah, I mean
for those that don't know.
Yeah, and I mean we had, out of these 1,100 guys, we were strung between Haditha and Heat. And then when they replaced us with 6 battalions. So
which is how many?
6 battalions. That's going to be roughly probably about, with the augments, about somewhere around 2,400 guys at least.
So you're talking on almost another 1,000 guys.
Yeah. I'm sorry, more than that, about 4,200.
About 40. So
yeah.
So more than triple probably than what you guys had when you first went out there. Now, you were a corpsman?
Correct.
So your job as a corpsman is to treat, because you're a medic, right? That's what a corpsman is a medic in the military. So you always see it on all the military movies. Anytime someone gets shot, medic, 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 and they're calling the medic, calling corpsman. So I'm sure you have a lot that you had to deal with when you were over there.
Yeah. While we were there, for the most part, being the lead petty officer, I was in the BAS, Battalion Aid Station, most of the time in Haditha. But the rule in combat nowadays is if you wound a civilian, then they go through your evacuation chain. So we had a lot of Iraqi civilians come through us. And then we did have some pretty good firefights in close enough proximity to the dam that those wounded Marines and corpsmen came through us. So,
it's like being a trauma doctor in an ER in a busy MASH unit.
And exactly. And we had one battalion surgeon, and then we had a chief IDC, an independent duty corpsman, who's basically like a PA. And then one of the other chiefs, because it was a reserve unit, he was a PA. And then there was myself, an advanced practice paramedic. So our doc basically made all of us trauma team leaders. So I had a trauma team all to myself when we had wounded come in. And that was, it was interesting.
Yeah, Jeff, you see it on the streets. We will, as a cop, we'll get to the scene. Fire department will come to throw them on a gurney, and they'll take them off to the hospital, and then we're left doing the mess. But we see the initial, but we don't see when he gets into the hospital. Once they're in that hospital, let's talk about the trauma you see. Also has an effect. So this is almost like I don't know how to put it, but it's a pass along trauma that goes to the ER doc or the trauma doc, the medic, and it's causing damage the whole ride.
Yeah,
from
definitely.
The ambulance, from being in the back of the ambulance with the paramedics to going to that trauma 1 room for the medic who's working on you in there. It's the sight of the blood, the pain, the agony, the family. How do you deal with it? How have you come to deal with it?
Well, back then, when you're in the moment, you just deal with it the best way you can. And so,
drink.
Well, unfortunately, when you're deployed, you can't do that. So there was a lot of sleepless nights sitting out on top of the dam, smoking cigarettes and just kind of talking between myself and my roommate, who's one of the other first classes, and then one of the chiefs. We'd just kind of sit up there and talk it all out. But that's really the kind of the way you deal it, because in the military, especially in the Marine Corps, it's very much I can remember when we came back, we rotated through Lejeune to come back, and we were in the Lejeune Theater, and we're talking about, I had a mental health nurse up there, and she's talking to all of us, and by this time it was down to about 800 guys. And she basically told us, hey, if you have something that you need to talk to somebody about, there's no stigma. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to follow you in your career. It's not going to hurt you.
And what year was this?
This was 2005.
Wow. Okay.
And they, I mean, all around us, we could hear guys going, that ain't going to happen. I'm not going to talk about that. Because the fear is that you talk about it and then you get labeled, and then either you get passed up for promotion or assignments, or, they find a way to get you out.
Right.
And so a lot of the guys, especially the younger guys, didn't talk about it, and I didn't talk about it when I came back.
Out of fear, right?
Very much so.
Now let me ask some, and I know Jeff has seen this almost firsthand, where they're told the same exact thing. Don't worry, you can come to us, and then don't worry, there's no stigma, and then all of a sudden you're getting transferred, or you're being passed up from a promotion, or right, or the whispers. Right.
And I think a lot of that's I'm hoping that's more on the wayside now. And we talked last week about fear, and I think a lot of the stigma that's still around is from fear. And is it real or is it perceived? And I think generationally, as we talk. If I went to any of my mentors and said, hey, I'm having problems, I don't believe they would have said, hey, go get help, but we would hash it out there and at the round table.
Right.
Or, hey, we're going to go do a follow-up, especially when I was in CID. We're going to go run to Dallas on a follow-up, and we'd hash it out in the car. But I think that's part of breaking the stigma right now is, and that's kind of what my mission is, as a 25-year cop, is to look at some of the new guys coming in and say, hey, you good? And don't tell me you're fine. Don't tell me you're okay. Are you good?
Right.
Okay, you're good right now. I'm going to talk to you again in 3 days. And, expect this. You're not going to sleep worth a crap. You don't be surprised if you're not up for 24 hours. We had some guys that did CPR on an infant maybe 2 months ago. And call the kid at home. Hey, I'm going to tell you, I've been there. This is what's going to happen. Stay out of the liquor cabinet. If you feel like you're going to break down.
Right.
You got to let that out. If your wife has a problem or doesn't understand, have your wife call me. I think that's where the real fear comes from, is what are people going to think? You're dealing with a bunch of alpha males for the most part,
right?
Or alpha personalities. And then I can't imagine being in a Marine Corps unit.
Yeah.
Everybody is an alpha.
Alpha plus.
Yeah. And God bless the Marines. But of course nobody's going to come out and say, hey, I've got a problem.
Right.
And because of past stories, man, and we call it the rubber gun squad. God, or the wooden gun for other guys. You're going to end up on that unit. And man, I'm here to tell you, the most courageous thing I've done in my career was going in and sitting on the couch and really getting down to, hey, I'm at the end of my rope.
But how long did it take you to do that?
It took me almost 18 years.
18 years, right? And if you don't mind me, how many attempts of suicide?
Didn't have any full blown attempts. As far as I've had. I can tell you what gun cleaning oil tastes like.
Yeah, well, so you didn't pull a trigger, of course. But you know what? Putting your gun to your head, or trying to start your gun, like you said, to put your gun, it's not normal.
No,
it's not normal.
No,
and to me, those attempts, those thoughts, you're a foot-pound away from ending your life. So there's a what the fuck moment. Hey, screw it, I'm done. And ending it, or there's that moment in time that says, hey, I don't want to do this for whatever reason. A sound, something that hits your head. You see something in your vision that says, a picture of your kid or whatever. That makes you change your mind.
And that's what saved me. I've had a discussion with Jesus, and then the second time I was like, I'm not orphaning my kid. I'm a decorated officer, and I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to leave this kid.
Right.
And it's looking back now, it was amazing to me that I was in that deep of a hole, and it had gotten that dark, and I was that busted up that was my option. And honestly, part of the reason me and Eric became such good friends is I've come to Eric before and said, hey man, I'm there,
right.
and he pulled me out of the office one day and we had a serious talk. Hey dude, you ain't going anywhere.
Well, he's like 6'8".
Right. But, but I mean, having that person there and that's part of my faith is God has put some people in my life that I never, I didn't know they were coming. My fiance now, I mean, she is an absolute godsend that's come in and she's been able to understand or learn, why don't you sleep at night?
Right.
And I can go back and say, hey, this is kind of, this is spinning up. I'm going to tell you now. Okay, let's sit down and talk about it. And it's not, hey, do you want a beer? You ready to hit the bourbon?
Right.
And I went through that, not too long ago, and it was, that was the only way I could numb out and that's all I wanted to be.
Well, one, as a cop, that's the norm because that's what you grew up with. Mm-hmm. As a rookie cop coming in,
choir
practice, going out for beer, parking lot beer. But let's rewind a minute and let's talk about that rabbit hole that most of us go down.
Mm-hmm.
right? Eric, you didn't even know you were down a rabbit hole.
No.
No,
See,
you don't realize.
You don't realize it
Totally
because
normal.
It does, because it was almost 10 years for me, 18 for you, it was 10 years for me, that I was down that rabbit hole, causing all this damage and destruction to family, friends, and to relationships that I didn't know. You know, it was a normal day of life.
Yeah.
You know, your rabbit hole, same thing.
Yeah, I think it was because, you know, early in my career, I can remember going on a bad call that emptied 2 stations out of all the personnel. I can remember riding back in the back of the ambulance and looking at the guy who was my mentor and saying, I don't feel right about this. You know, it's just nothing's setting right with me. And he looked at me literally and said, you'll get over it. You're good. You know, and that's, I think that was, especially with the old heads at that point in time, you know, like all three of us grew up with, you know, that was kind of the mentality. And that kind of started the slide, I think, for me, because you start out with that, well, yeah, I don't need to tell anybody about this. I'm good. And then when people finally get around to asking, that was another thing I saw in that theater at Lejeune was guys were saying, well, I don't want to talk to anybody because they won't understand. You know? And so I think that just adds that, it's another shovel full of dirt in that rabbit hole that goes over your shoulder. Right. And for me, it had been, let's see, I think you and Chris finally pulled me in there, 2017? 18. So for me, it had been almost 27 years.
What was your breakthrough moment?
I was having a lot of problems in my marriage at that point in time. I mean, a lot of problems, and I was doing a lot of stupid stuff. I think I was just, I didn't know what to do, so I was just doing stupid stuff. And finally, another friend of ours, Chris Weinsaffel, and Jeff basically pulled me out, and they said, "Hey, you're going to go talk to Chris."
Because they saw it from the outside.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Yeah, you know, and him and Chris go back farther than me and him do, and you see it, and you see the destruction happening, and finally, I think we'd even made an appointment for you and said, "Hey, you need to be at this address at 3:00 on Tuesday." Well, I got no. This is where you're going, 3:00 on Tuesday, and we have to come
exactly what
tag team you.
Right.
Yeah, take your big ass down and drag us out. You know, that's what we're going to do.
And that's what happened. They basically made the appointment for me, and they basically told me, "Hey, here's the deal. You're going, and if you don't go, then the next time you'll wake up in the doctor's office." Quite literally.
This is, you guys just touched on an amazing aspect of mental health, is that we've all been down a rabbit hole, right? And everybody's seen it. Everybody around us seen the destruction that we were causing, except ourselves, right? But you, Jeff, you've been down that rabbit hole, so you know what the destruction looked like, right? So you looked at Eric and said, "Man, he's going down that rabbit hole." The courage to stand up to someone and say, "Hey, I got you," and pull him out of that, instead of going, "He'll get over it. He's just in a mood." You know, and we all see it. We all see that person going down a rabbit hole, but a lot of us are not strong enough to step up and say, "I'm here to help you."
You know, and I don't know if it's a strength thing or even or is it a knowledge thing?
I think it's a strength and knowledge. I think it's a knowledge thing.
Because I think some guys have to go, "Man, you know, you hear it. I didn't know what to do. I saw it, but I didn't know what to do." And so, I mean,
a little of both.
Just pose a question though, and this is something, and I find myself, I take inventory of me pretty in depth at least twice a week now. You know, just kind of do some checks and make sure, yeah, you're good. You know, and legitimately, I'm good. I'm not okay. I'm not fine. I'm good. I think the overwhelming feeling I had when I start looking back, and I want to get y'all's opinion on it, is shame. I had a lot of shame with the way I was feeling because I didn't know that was okay. At the time, I didn't know it was okay to not be okay. But then you have shame, and then I look back at some of the things I did, you know, destroying relationships, and you know, it's just this shame. So for a long time, and it's been something just recently that I've kind of starting to get over. I wore this red S on, not Superman.
Right.
I read that, I had that crimson S on my heart all the time, and just carried that forever. It was just a shame of, hey, remember that? Yeah, I remember that.
Is it shame or is it regret?
I think it's both.
Yeah, because when you use
or
the
is
word,
it regret masked as shame? And and that goes back into my faith as well about, and without going way into biblical stuff, but I think that's what the evil one is going to put on you more than anything is shame. Boom, here you go. And man, he drenched me in it. I was swimming in it for a long time.
But this is where I kind of disagree a little bit, because you have a broken leg, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, you fall in the kitchen. And you take the Thanksgiving Day turkey and it all goes on the floor, and you get up and you slide around in it, right? Is that shame? Because you didn't take your crutches with you, you tried to walk on a broken leg. When we try to look at mental health, the post-traumatic stress is an injury. It's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Right.
But yes, we could regret that we didn't seek help, or we didn't realize until now. But I don't think it's something to be shameful for, because it really wasn't your fault.
Well, and I think that's the flip side. And like I said, I'm coming out of that.
Yeah.
Is that, no, it's not shame. It was all normal. And regrets. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. It's regrets. But the shame part of it, and just looking back and going, damn, what was I thinking?
Yeah, okay.
And so that was, and that's part of it too.
It's the aha thing.
It's
the light bulb. Yeah.
I didn't know what I was thinking, and that's your chemistry gets, and that's, to me, again, that was the big aha moment as well, going through this journey, is how jacked up your brain. And that's for people that are way smarter than I'll ever be, but being able to figure out your brain chemistry, dude, you are all jacked up.
Yeah.
And so no, you're not thinking right. And the injury itself doesn't let us, and that was one of the things when I start getting triggered up, I couldn't complete a thought without the next, and now all of a sudden, I mean, it's just this movie reel running, and then it gets on loop, and you almost get to the end of the thought, and then here comes another one. You're like, holy shit, this is coming fast. And so you almost become manic.
Yeah.
Out of how you just think about things, and then the impulsive, doing impulsive shit on top of it. It's like, God, why'd I do that? And it's like, I got a good gun collection out of it, but just making impulsive buys and stuff. But I mean, it just, I don't know, and I've never heard anybody really talk about the shame part of it, and maybe I'm, the anomaly out of it. But I think a lot of guys do feel the shame, shame coming through that, and part of it is an education piece.
Is it shame or being shamed?
Could be both. Could be both,
but I think the mental health aspect of it is the fact that those two get so tight together that they're inseparable.
You can't see the difference between them.
You can't see the difference between the two of them.
Right.
And so, I mean, and that just adds to it.
Because if you're with the wrong support network, and
which is worse than being with none.
Right, where you're feeling shame because you were shamed for feeling the way that you felt that wasn't your fault. Gets friggin' deep. Yeah. So if you have somebody that says, suck it up, you shouldn't feel this way, get over it, it was just a baby, it was just a piece of meat, it was just a car accident. Now you, in your mind, feel, well, but I feel this. I feel the hurt. I feel the emotion, but maybe I'm not supposed to feel that way.
Well, and then when you stop feeling, that's a scary chapter in this book too.
Right.
Because, I've seen I've worked some bad stuff, and you look at it and you're like,
You have to.
And then you go back, even when I get out of work mode, we all turn on the work mode. And I couldn't imagine doing 6 months of work mode of just day in and day out. But, you come out of that and you're like, man, what's wrong with me? That didn't bother me at all.
I think, not to interrupt you, but I think what that is something that Chris talked to me about, Chris Jones, who we went and saw, was the compartmentalization of it. And the compartmentalization where at first you're able to move in between those compartments, like your compartment that you spend with your family, and then your work compartment, and then the compartment where the real bad stuff happens. And the problem is you end up in that compartment that all the bad stuff happens in, and you can't find your way back out of it.
Yeah, you get stuck in there.
Yeah, I believe that, and I'm not going to use that word because I can never pronounce it right. Compartmentalize, whatever. It's like cinnamon, putting it in different drawers. But I don't think it's that you never feel it. You get callous to it, because I think everybody has that emotional heartstring pulling thing. It hurts you, but your brain has become so put up as such a defense mode to it, where it turns around and says, this ain't going to hurt you, even though it does subconsciously. Your brain puts up that wall and says, I'm not going to let it bother me. I'm going to throw it in that drawer. I'm going to throw it in that compartment. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is either I'm going to make fun of it, use some dark humor, as we all do. I'm going to use some dark humor to laugh it off and lighten up the mood, and then it's all going to be fine. But we don't realize we're doing more damage to ourselves that way.
Well, and with that, I had a conversation with a very seasoned firefighter this weekend, and he's like, hey man, something weird happened. I'm driving down the road the other day, and 27 years ago we worked a kid that hung himself in a tree out there in the park. I haven't thought about that in 27 years. And he said, I'm driving down the road and I looked out there and I saw him hanging. What is that about? Well, there's some of that fun drawer opening up, and that's the other fun part of the brain that goes, yeah, you're not going to deal with it now. We're gonna knock the shit out of you with it 20 years later.
Well, something triggered him.
Well, and I think one of the best analogies that I've ever heard in my public safety career was, it's a bucket, and you keep putting stuff into it, and you keep putting stuff into it, and eventually that bucket gets full. When that bucket can't hold anymore, it sloshes out. When it sloshes out, that's what happens. Is we have things like what he was talking about, seeing that kid hanging in a tree, or you have guys acting out and doing stuff outside their marriage, or drinking too much, or doing other stupid things.
Right.
I think that's a great analogy for it. And that maybe be better than the drawer.
Well, you get that overfill, but for him to see that kid hanging, right? Was it at that specific spot? Was the kid hanging there? Or is that the location?
Yeah.
Oh, because sometimes things trigger you.
Yeah.
And my analogy is on triggers is, we all. I mean, one thing our minds do is remember songs, right?
Yeah.
You can remember your favorite songs from your favorite bands from 1970s, from the 60s. You can sing the Mamas and Papas songs in your head over and over again.
I can't, John.
No. Well, I can.
I'm there with you, John.
You know what I mean? But, we remember these songs. We couldn't do our schoolwork, but we can remember these songs. We remember them word for word. So there's a couple of songs that are in my head that if I hear them, it almost brings me back to that bar, that girl, that dance. I can see the dance floor. I can see the DJ. I know my friends are around me. And it just brings back that happy moment, right? Because it's a trick. I hear that song. It triggers my brain to that moment in time where it's almost that movie reel that you talk about. The traumas that we've seen, a touch, a smell, a flower, a car, a backfire, a sound, anything is going to trigger you. That's going to open up that door. It's going to bring out that trauma, and you're going to vividly see the same thing. A song brings you back to that moment in time. A trigger is going to bring you back to that moment in time. So maybe he was driving down the road, saw a road sign that subconsciously was that same road sign, and said, "This is where this happened."
But I mean, he's like, man, I've driven that same road.
Maybe the sun was
times.
The sun that night was just right. The sun was just right,
and it's getting into flashback stuff too. That's some scary. God, that's scary. Between the flashback, this was my hardest part. I think of healing was flashbacks and night terrors. And when I've been asked, describe what a night terror is, and I'm like, okay, so take your nightmare and then let's put it in 1080 HD with smell, 4D stuff, where I can smell things again. You can smell all the blood and brain, or smell the gunpowder. And that's how you relive it, but it is so high def, and I mean you're there. It's not like
it's 4D, man. It's 4D.
I had this weird dream, the flashbacks were just terrible. The flashbacks, and I've seen people in the front of my car while I'm driving. Shit, pull over. Get yourself back together. And
I never experienced flashbacks. I had night terrors. I had nightmares. Never had flashbacks. Been triggered where I had anxiety attack.
Mm-hmm.
But I never actually saw the flashbacks like you're talking about.
I ended up. We were at Disney World. I ended up in a planner when the
so Mickey Mouse was like, "Oh no, man!"
The fireworks went off at night.
Oh, okay.
And it totally, boom, instinct. I'm grabbing the kid and I'm trying to get in the planner, and people are looking at you. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, what's
Mickey
up with
Mouse
him?
Police are fixing to come get me. But
Yeah, that's the way I was when I first came back from Iraq. I mean, the next 4th of July, I was in a closet.
Yeah, really. Now, explain, because people don't understand that. People don't understand. They're like, they're only fireworks. That's not.
Well,
that's
it's yeah,
Right.
It wasn't even really the fireworks that got me. Probably the biggest one that I can remember that triggered me was I was out at Station 3, and you know how there was a back door at Station 3 that goes out of the kitchen to where the grill is, and so obviously we use that almost every day. But it would get about 6 inches of closing, and then it would close real fast. And when you get mortared, it's not so much the sound. It's the
concussion.
It's the concussion in the chest. And
Right.
I would be standing out there in the kitchen. It would hit the same thing. And it got within probably about a month of me going back on shift. I couldn't be out there.
Wow.
If guys were going in and out of that, I couldn't be out there. And normally in the fire station, as both you guys know, that's kind of the community time, is meal time when you're making dinner or lunch or something like that, and everybody's out there. And I was the captain out there at Station 3, and I couldn't be out there. And finally, my senior firefighter came into my office one day. He's like, and I'd been his rookie when I first got hired, and he was like, he said, "Lurch," that's what they called me.
imagine that.
Imagine that. Yeah. He said, "What's going on with you? How come you're not out there?" Because I used to do a good majority of the cooking in the fire station. He's like, I didn't really want to talk about Smith. And he's like, "I'm going to sit here in your office until we figure this out, because you need to be out there."
Right.
And so finally I told him it's the back door, and he and my driver with their own money spent about $700 and fixed that arm, replaced it.
I mean, that's great. He was understanding, but people don't understand that a door shutting.
Yeah. Just that simple thing
could have such traumatic effects on people, and that's just one trigger.
Well, and,
it's just one thing.
It's funny thinking about it too, because I got into video games as an escape from reality when I came back, and I was playing one video game. And there was one area in the video game that sounded like a CH-53, which is a very large helicopter in the Marine Corps inventory. And I would sit there at night, and I wouldn't even be playing. I'd just sit there in the chair in front of the computer, and I'd listen to that noise because that noise would calm me down.
Really?
But my wife didn't understand that. All she understood was, it's 2:00 in the morning. You're playing that dang video game again. And so that led into that. And it was something that I couldn't really talk about, sitting in this video game, this one place makes me feel better. Yeah. You're not, it's not something you really want to bring up or even explain. But I mean, that's what probably got me through the first year of me coming back from Iraq, was that and a few other things.
Well, that's why, when we do our badge of honor and we bring in, families, the family understanding and having knowledge. And I tell this to so many people, is like, if I got cancer, right, my wife would search out the best doctors, would look at every different treatment option, would research, would be on Wikipedia, would be on, WebMD, all this stuff to find out, how am I going to save him, right? Why isn't family doing that for mental health?
Because I think one of the problems is that you watch, you watch TV and like, mainstream TV with, shows like, I don't know, NCIS or SEAL Team or anything like that. And every once in a while, they'll do a show on mental health and they'll do it in their own framing. But the problem is that all the other times it's framed in a totally incorrect way. Right. So if they need a bad guy, it's the Marine sniper that came back and he has PTSD and that's why he's shooting everybody. Well, then all of a sudden the PTSD goes right back to being a bad thing.
Right. Exactly.
And so people shy away from that. And whereas cancer, people's like, oh, cancer, bad thing. Got to research it. Got to find the best doctor. People are like, oh, PTSD.
Yeah,
that's bad.
Well, and I think we can look in the mirror on that as well, because I know I did everything I could to keep Officer Freeman separate from Jeff. I kept Officer Freeman different from Jeff the husband, Jeff the dad, and so I'm not gonna go back and I'm trying to shield. I think I'm shielding my family from all the garbage that I'm coming home with, and I'm not dropping the garbage off. I'm just hiding it, and I still got the stink all over me. But I don't want them to see this. I don't want to have to explain this. How was your day? It was a shitty fucking day. And that was usually about the explanation that they got. Well, what'd you do? Well, I didn't help kids across the street today. I mean, if you really want to know, and I think that's part of it. I think that we're as guilty of.
We are.
We are.
And
so that's what this platform and a badge of honor and all the organizations that are out here now and social media is coming out and going, hey, I was broken. I was broken to shit. But you can be put back together. But I can't do it by myself. I can't put myself back together. I need my tribe to step up and start helping me. My professional tribe and then my personal tribe. I need these guys, and I think that's what's so sad about this is as tribal as we are as first responders. You got your guys that you're going to roll with.
Right.
Fire guys, shit, I'm going to B shift at Station 2 because that's, those are some cool cats over there. Screw 4 A shift or whatever, however y'all shift works over there. But I mean,
your sleeping shifts.
Yeah, whatever you want to cuddle, buddy. But I always, when I was on the street, we would bid shift based on who the sergeant was,
right,
and who's going to be. Hey, if I bid that shift, you got enough seniority that you can get on it. Yeah, okay, that's where I'm going. But we never did that when it was, fuck, I'm broken. Like I said, I've been in his office a couple times, and it's just like, dude, I need to shut the door and lay it out. He was always my soundboard, but he never did say it back until Chris and I started watching and went, okay, it's time to do something different. What we're doing ain't working.
Yeah.
And I needed somebody to tell me that the same way he did, the same way you did.
Well, we, once again, this really, hour went real quick. Eric, last 30 seconds, can you wrap it up with, what would you tell somebody who's broken right now, who is listening to this show or getting this show shared to them saying, hey, I need help. What would you recommend?
I'd tell them that there's always hope. That the answer is not, suck starting your pistol or doing anything like that. The answer is just asking for help. Whether it's from your spouse or a friend or, your chain of command, whatever, or finding the strength to do it yourself. But find somebody that works for you and get into treatment, or just go talk to somebody, because that's what it took for me. And I was lucky enough that I had Jeff and Chris, and they yanked me up for the bootstraps, and I was probably on the road out of here if that didn't happen to me. And I think that's it, is just finding the strength to take that first step, and talk to somebody.
Right.
And just know that there's hope, that the answer
don't hide
is, don't hide it. And the answer isn't, pulling the ultimate trigger. That's not the answer to anything.
Right. Well, I appreciate it. Eric, thank you so much. And we're going to have you back on for a part 2 soon, because this hour went really quick, but lots of valuable information. Jeff, any closing
And keep smashing the stigma, guys. Don't be afraid to talk. You know, you got the courage to answer any call that comes down the pipe. Have the courage to reach out. You know, you see your partner hurting, reach out.
Yeah.
You know, the three best words I got through this journey was, I got you. Tell your partner that.
Yeah.
Yep. I got you. I mean, that's got to be on a shirt. I got you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it is. Smashing the stigma. Once again, I want to thank both you guys. Jeff, thanks for stepping in for Sam. Can't wait till Sam gets back here and you're going to join us again.
Absolutely.
You know, Badge of Honor, this is what we do. We talk real stuff with our first responders and your families, and we try to heal you.
Hey, and we're coming up December 11th in Garland.
December 12th.
The 12th. No,
the 11th. You're right.
11th.
December
It's a
11th.
Friday.
Yep.
In Garland at Premier Hospital. First responders go to badgeofhonor.com, and the link is up to get registered. We are offering T-Cole credit as well. You know, you got to get your training in, so why don't you get some training that's going to save your life or your partner's life?
Exactly. So just go to a Badge of Honor. You can check that out. Give me one more second before we wrap this up, because once again, you know what? Everybody wants to get their license to carry. You can get your license to carry from your living room couch tonight. You don't have to make an appointment. You can just go online and go carryintexas.com. Carryintexas.com. Samantha Horowitz, retired Secret Service agent, has put together a wonderful program, vetted, approved program online. Carryintexas.com. You can get your license to carry tonight, sitting in your underwear, doing this with a cup of coffee. And then all you got to do is go to the range for one thing. Shoot with Sam. Make the appointment. Carryintexas.com. Get your LTC today. And until then, don't give up. Stay blessed. And until next week, we love you. We're out.
We want to invite you to check us out every Monday.